This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Now we can have a meeting. So I'm opening the meeting. Thank you all for coming. First thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the June meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
You were there in spirit. You were there. So you
I can still vote on it, though. I was
You can
on.
say second. So say second.
Second.
I don't think I was there.
I was on TV.
I have a motion and a second for the June minutes. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. I have to do Jamie's job. So Greg Rowland,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
yes.
Abstain, I wasn't there.
Can still vote. Read them.
You better.
Joe,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
Dan says aye. So the minutes are approved.
Oh, boy.
We have one big item on the agenda, but I want to share. Give me a second while I figure this out. Wrong one. Why isn't that? How do I change that up there? Darn it. Give me a second while I do this. I think I got that.
Technical difficulties.
Boys.
Anybody know how to do this?
There you go. Something's happening.
I'm making it bigger.
That's better.
Better. Can you read that? 2,118,000.
Yep.
It's important to see that figure because it's jumped a great deal since the last time we met based on our budget. It has a lot to do with what I'm going to suggest this evening with regard to the bond for city space. We have some significant funding. And the other thing that's not in here is that the governor just signed into 20 million more for the EA match, which I read from Stewart at the coalition would mean probably a 40% match second round, which means we're going to get more money than we estimated. We always estimate low. So we have enough funds, and I'm going to bring this up now, should we choose to bond 2 million instead of 2.25 and use and pay the 2.5 out of cash. Always less interest. So let's get into the bonding. I'm gonna have, let's review. City Space has requested 3.25 million. Full amount for the construction of Old Town Hall. We have in front of us this evening only the bonding authorization to go to the full council. The bonding authorization, if the city CPA approves it this evening, would be dealt with first by the full council, sent to finance, and then approved in September. In the meantime, we will do a separate authorization for the 1 million or 1.25 to be appropriated into the construction account. We'll just move it from our other accounts into the construction account. So it's two separate things. One of the reasons for that is we need a grant agreement done. There's things the CPA has to do, and I need Jamie for that, and she's on vacation. It's the summer. So I don't think that holds anything up. The bonding authorization is the big deal, okay? Burns, Mike, you understand that process, okay? As I understand it, one of the biggest reasons you wanted this bonding authorization is the strategy of getting people to understand, yes, we're really going to do this. There's a bonding authorization. for grants, for state grants and more donations. I mean, that's a true statement, correct? You're trying to use the fact that we're moving forward with this, not only just to go out to bid and for construction, but for that purpose.
That's correct.
Okay,
Also, I would say
let's speak up so Greg can hear you.
for the fact that we're moving forward with the project, and in order to align our timeline with the bonding timeline, it would make sense to do this process now rather than later. So that we're not delayed with construction.
Okay, a couple things. I met with the treasurer and we met with, Greg and I met with the treasurer. There was a concern that we'd have to bond the entire project. Like, let me give you an example. The school bond was 109 million, even though we only bonded 60 some. We would have to bond 7 million, even though we only need 2.25 or whatever we choose. But that's not the case according to the treasurer. She found that out. So we only have to authorize bonding for 2.25 million. Greg, did you hear that? That was you were there for that? That's a big news. We don't have to do that? Yes, great.
Great.
The rate is not fixed. The documents I sent to you show terms and principles. I mean, a 10-year, 15-year on a 5% interest rate. She feels that's high, a high estimate, which is good news because they are high.
This is 475.
There's the one to the right says 5%. Look up.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
We would decide the structure and term at the time of purchase. If the CPA committee in the next meeting authorizes Greg and I to make that decision, what's the decision the CPA would make is how much to bond. How we get there, the treasurer has ways. She talked about banding if the rates are too high. I learned what a band was.
Can you explain to the lay people in the room?
Bond anticipation note. It's a 1-year note. If the rate is too high, you take out a note and we pay that interest for 1 year. It might be 63,000, say. And then we start the 10-year note. This is all strategy to get the best deal for the CPA. And I trust that the treasurer and the mayor will look for that to get the best. So my thinking is if we authorize the bond, when we go to purchase the bond, okay? Now here's a big deal, a big thing that I'm asking. Mike, you said the last time, your timeline is to go out to bid once you have your funds in place, construction funds and the authorization to bond.
Well, that's a part of the construction.
Okay,
So yes, including the authorization.
the authorization to bond, but not the actual purchase of the bond. The actual purchase
That's
of,
the city's decision. I mean, we would certainly try to coordinate timing. So once we know,
let me give you worst case scenarios, okay? We would like the bond, purchase the bond has to be contingent on you getting your construction funds. So we authorize the bond, but we don't actually purchase it until your funds are in place, just like you want them for going out to bid. Does that make sense? We don't actually purchase the bond.
that certainly makes sense, but it doesn't change anything for us.
Okay, because that's important. We don't want to take, I don't want to take, and I'm recommending the committee does not want to take out a bond and start paying interest when we're not ready to build. We want to wait
Well,
until.
it depends, I guess, and I don't want to go into that, but I mean, the city will have to make a decision. Are rates going up? Would it make more sense to bond now than 6 months from now? Those are questions that you know.
Well, the treasurer told me she felt the rates now were high and that they'd go down. But the point of that is we have to make sure that your funds are in place.
We need the city council authorization.
That will happen. But the actual purchase of the bond won't happen until your funds are in place. Now, the good news is, I hope it's good news to you, she is confident that it'll only take 1 month once the bond is placed to bid for the cash to be in the account.
And you're providing million in.
Maybe $1.25 million in
You're
cash.
providing a chunk of cash that will give us cash flow that really a month or two probably won't matter. because the payments are going to be progress payments. And so you don't pay the contractor up front. You pay them as they work.
Okay.
And so if we told you we were going out to bid, you'd probably have 3 months from the bid opening to when you'd actually, from a cash flow basis, need to start funding some of that into our payments.
Let me give you another, and believe me, I'm just being the devil's advocate, but I'm hardly the devil on your side. This project is I'm a very big proponent of the project, but I'm concerned that the inflation rate that your architects have given you, the more money that you put into the project for inflation may be low. What happens if the bids come back and it's higher than you expected? I mean, do you have the possibility of getting a better estimate? Let's say you get all your money in place.
So we're asking the architect for an estimate in the fall,
Line by line, say?
a complete project estimate. So a whole new, the 2018 estimate is what we're
That's
working with.
excellent.
And so we're asking, let's duplicate that this fall so we have harder numbers. It's a little early to know exactly how we'll move, but I would likely advocate to the board at City Space that we do a similar bid to what we just did for the first floor, the second floor phase one. And that's to take some pieces out that if we absolutely had to raise more money, then they would be ad alternates. And we could, the last thing you really want to do is go out to bid and not award, because they're never going to come in low. Everybody's already exposed their position, and so they're not going to get cheaper. So my guess is we would, depending on the estimate, what we see as the number we need to be able to go out to bid.
Mhm.
If it looks like it's very tight, then I might advocate for a couple of add-alts, some things that we could add in a third phase, just to make sure we can do a base bid.
Okay, that sounds good. I like that, personally.
That
Committee, do you have
was
any?
successful with our phase one.
Yeah, we did all the alternates, but
So you had add-alts that you were able to do them because the bids came in good. Well, my point is if your bids come in and we begin the purchase at that point, you have a month from the end of the bids coming in to the purchase of the bond. But again, if City Space is authorizing construction to begin, once the bond is, if you're going to begin construction with the cash you'll have on hand, then that should be sufficient, even if the bond took longer than a month. But the treasurer thinks it'll take a month from
yeah,
that.
my guess is we'd be able to apply for our 50% of that million you put in. Right? And then we'd be able to.
You could have that once City Space.
So that would cover likely the first couple of payments anyway. So we'd be 3 months, 4 months into the project, I think, before we would be looking for the bonded cash.
Does that makes sense to me in the sense that the bids come in and you know what you're actually going to need to do the project. We go out to bid the bond. We don't want a bond, naysayer here, devil's advocate, if you can't do the project yet. In other words, you need to find a lot more money, not just add alt.
Well, I would think also there's probably a value engineering process that you can go through in your head, right?
Yeah, but some of the major costs are the interior of the space, ceiling. Those are major pieces.
Right.
You really,
You
you
can't,
got to do the
there's
sound.
no fluff. Okay.
Yeah, so there's really not very much that I can think of off the top of my head that we can alt up there, but I haven't studied it. Yeah, there's a few small things. Certainly.
But no big ticket items.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
We have the elevator, we need the elevator, right? We need the HVAC.
the CPA committee authorized or voted to extend our commitment to 3.5 million, 250 you've already received. So 3.25. Should your estimate come in a lot higher, I don't believe that can go up. We have major projects in front of us. Affordable housing, the pool and everything. Just so I'm completely transparent about what's coming up for the CPA. So the 3.5 million is that I mean, that's the best we're gonna ever do, I think. That's the best that I feel comfortable with. And I'm just one vote, but I'm just telling you that. Burns?
I mean, that will help us get to the next step of the project.
Okay,
I mean, it's
all right.
incredibly important to making this project happen, so it's much appreciated. However, you know, if we need to come back and see you, we will. I mean, that's
Well, in the future,
reality.
we'll see what happens.
It's a historic building, it's owned by the city. We are not expecting to. As you know, we have historic tax credits that we've been awarded for the second floor project that will be sold afterwards. They can go back into the building.
I thought they were for the facade.
Right.
You're not including the historic tax credits as part of
No.
your construction matchup.
No, my point is that, you know, we are working to create sustainability as much as we can for the building.
Okay, good. What else did I want to say? Besides going into the actual rates and principles, do we have any questions from any committee members so far?
So to recap, can we just recap?
Yes.
Because I want to make sure that it's clear.
Mhm.
There's $1 million that they could be drawing right up front, cash. Then we're going to be bonding for 2 or 2.25, depending on what we decide,
Mhm.
which would happen a month after they get their bids in.
It could. Yes, Michael.
You need to make sure the city council authorizes that,
Well, here's the thing.
because I can't spend that yet.
No, and that won't happen until it goes into the construction account. The process I indicated at the beginning was all we're doing tonight is getting the bond authorization before city council. The bond authorization, 2 million, 2.25 million.
Mhm.
If we choose 2 million, which I'm leaning toward, then 1.25 would be discussed and presented at the August CPA meeting and moved to city council as a separate vote. Okay? Because that has to move from the other funds. It's an interdepartment transfer in a sense, because they're in Old Town Hall preservation or reserve for second floor project. That's $1 million. That has to be moved into the construction account, which we created for phase 1.
So not that I anticipate that there's going to be a negative vote on that, but if there was for the 1 million, then we'd have to go back and rediscuss the bond amount, correct?
Would it make sense?
Well, let me say this. If you look at the bond authorization vote, it includes 3.25 million. The bond council's language includes the entire project.
Okay,
So the city council is saying, yeah, we'll bond that much, but we're approving 3.25.
okay,
And I'll get to that.
okay.
So in essence, they're saying yes. So if the other thing
I'm
is
with you.
pro forma, I hope they
I
could
just
say
didn't
no,
want it,
but
I didn't want us to be circling around again and again. So that's
Again.
fine.
we're not authorizing the bond we're not purchasing the bond until all the ducks are in a row.
Doesn't this do it? Doesn't this make that transfer?
No. I don't think so.
Transferring $1 million from the phone. Well, whatever. I mean, that's.
I think you might be right, but I can't. This is what what Mike's talking about here. This has the 1 million, and I'm prepared to change that should we want to go up. Can you read, I sent this email to you. Did you get this?
I got an email with the debt schedules, but
It came in after that.
I didn't see that one.
Does this help you guys? I'm only looking at the top paragraph.
Can't
Okay.
catch up on things when they come the same day.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm not sure of that, Michael. I don't believe it does.
Had a busy life.
So that's neither here nor there. We'll get it done.
Yeah, well, the loan order does the same thing as far as the transfer. You may be able to do it all in this one order, but that's your business.
Right. I believe I may need that. There also needs to be a grant agreement, which Jamie has to set up, and a big grant agreement once cash is about to be distributed. There is a major project grant agreement that's standard for these kind of projects. Anything else, Jess?
No, I just want to this is confusing stuff. So I want to make
Oh,
sure that,
no. That's why I'm stopping.
that I understand.
Greg, you with us so far? Thank you. So Let me tell you where I am, because I've been studying these. This is the 10-year. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger. I am leaning, this is equal principal. Let me say that we had a discussion of $300,000 payment and maximum payment per year. This is called equal principal at $2 million. I'm gonna try and find the one. That's 15 years. I am looking only at the 5% because these are samples. This isn't what we'll do because we don't know what the rate will be when we actually purchase the bond.
What does equal principal mean? Can we just explain some of these terms of level debt versus equal principal?
Equal principal means you divide the principal by the number of years and you pay the interest on the outstanding balance. Equal debt means you pay kind of the same payment every year. So you pay the principal down slower and you incur higher interest costs.
Okay.
So level debt
is normal.
Okay.
The treasurer and I were leaning toward equal principal only because
I'm sorry, equal principal.
I'm trying to find the one that I liked. This, if you can see here, this is the same payment almost every year, which we talked about. But one of the things we talked about at our bond meeting was that we will know at the beginning of every fiscal year what our payment will be. Now I'm looking at 2 million, and let me tell you why. We have enough cash. Why borrow money we don't have to? So we would change this language in the bond authorization to 2 million and 1,250,000 from the fund. What does that mean? We put before the council a 1 million transfer from the reserve for Old Town Hall and 250 from our other funds. Which could be historic preservation, it could be any. I'm leaning toward liking that because of the price of this. I do not like 15 years, but this is our choices. It's either 2.25 or 2 million. It's either 10 year. Here's 10 years level debt. Oh, it's 15 year. I'm sorry, this thing jumps around on me. This is 2.25 level debt, which gives us the same price every year, which is around that $300,000 ballpark. But notice this figure here. That's the interest. Look at the bottom of the page. This is a $2 million bond. Equal principal. As you can see, it starts high, but it goes down. But this figure is considerably less over time, the amount of interest. Okay? So we pay less interest, but in the second year, the third year, the fourth year, it goes down. And it's only 10 years. The other thing to say, and I'll repeat it, is that the treasurer feels that 5% is a high estimate. So does anybody she's talked to. And she had 16 years in here, she thinks it's really high. It's a crystal ball. When we go out to purchase the bond, we'll find out. So my feeling is 300,000 should be our max. And in the minutes of the meeting, if you will, we can make a motion for that. But if we stay that way, now if you go to 15 years, it's a lot cheaper. I mean, a lot per year cheaper, but it's costlier.
So the mechanics, though, from the CPA perspective is that we would know what the principal and interest amount is, and we would transfer that amount specifically every year. Out of our budget.
This year, we're putting 250 in.
Right, which we've consistently done over the past couple of
5
years.
years.
Right.
So
this amount of 300 isn't that much more than what
and it's taking that place of that.
Right.
But we had 700 and some thousand this year and it's gonna go up. And we still have a lot of funds left to be able to do our other projects. So that's the thinking that has been with the committee for all this time.
And just kind of big picture, so you talked about earlier in the meeting about, we're getting this big influx of money coming from the state now and.
I don't know how much, but it's better.
Right. So again, it's crystal ball, right? So we're thinking about where the state is at and how those matches are working. When we've had low match years from the state, we still have enough money, in your opinion, to be able to pay a $300,000 to shift that money over? I just don't know why that we're getting a big influx of CPA money right now. Is it ARPA money that's coming down the pipe? Like what's?
Property taxes are up because assessments are up.
Yep.
And the state has all this.
Yeah, housing sales are high.
And well, that's, and it's very important to say this.
But it comes from the deed, isn't it a surcharge on the deeds?
Yes, but also, well, they've got surplus at the state level.
Okay.
They're talking about giving us all 500 or $250. I mean, they got surplus, so they decided to move more. They did it last year too. They put 20 million from the surplus they had into the CPA fund.
Right.
Because they know they haven't been matching what they said promised. They promised 100% match way back when they voted this. Remember that?
So again, it's just, thinking about the cycles of this. So that's the moment in time right now that there's surplus money and we're feeling flush. 15 years from now, hard to know.
Right, which is why I want to go 10, not 15. I'm against that. But equal principal here is 618,000 in interest. Where is that?
It's almost 900
That's 15 years.
for 15.
550 for equal principal for only 2 million, 618 for 2.25 million. So you pay more interest than that. What is that? That's $68,000 in interest to go for 2.25. Now, the other option we have is we can bond for 2.25, but not take out. We can get authorization for 2.25, but we have the option of only bonding 2 million at the time. But that hurts their timeline because then that 250 has to come from someplace. The other thing to say is bonds in CPA must be paid for with property tax revenue. It cannot be, we cannot count on state match for it. They did that because they know the state is good for it all the time.
So all this talk about all the increased matching, it's somewhat of a viewpoint, except it will free money up for other projects.
Yes.
We can't use it at all for this one.
We can't. And the other thing that's in the law is if the city, God help us, voted, the citizens voted to remove the CPA, they're still on the hook for the rest of this.
Right.
That's not going to happen, I hope.
So from our city generated CPA tax funds, has it been climbing? Has it been level?
And it's been climbing because of assessments being higher. What do you call that? Yeah, assessments. They're higher.
It must be sales though, right? This one's
Well, if the value of your,
No, city's money is just the surtax.
the certain,
As your
Oh,
prop-
right.
As your property bill goes up, your surtax goes up.
so I'd like to hear, like Greg, how do you feel? I like 10 years, equal principal.
Yeah, Dan, can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, I have to turn you down, in fact.
Oops.
Okay.
So yeah, I like that. I'm curious if we have to make a decision on the bond structure at this meeting. Is this?
We don't.
Yeah,
This is just to give you an example.
yeah.
We don't know.
My understanding is that the CPA is also on the hook for the interest piece. So even though we're saying let's bond for $2 million under this particular scenario, it's the 2.55 million principal and interest total that we would need to be paying.
Has to be paid.
I just want everybody to be clear on that, we're talking 2 million or we're talking 2.25, that's just the principal piece, but the interest has to come from somewhere. But I like this. I mean, I think we can manage anything, like you say, 300,000 or under. I think it's doable. But I just want, clear eyes about the total.
The 5% interest she thinks is high. This is a sample. We won't know what the structure of the loan will be. And I'd like the committee to authorize, say, the chair and Greg to help make that decision with this treasurer. But that'll be a different discussion. Right now, my feeling is we take the 250 out of cash, because I like that we're not paying. Well, as I said, it's $618,000 in interest, almost $619,000 if we go to 2.25. And the first payment is $337,000. Let me go to that again. If I can find it. I can't. This thing is hard. I think it's down here. That's 15 years. Here you go. Look at this figure. That's our first payment if we borrow 2.25 at 5%. Again, it's a sample. This isn't what is probably going to happen because we don't know what the interest rate will be when we take the loan out. But it makes me want to keep our payments down and only borrow $2 million. Just to recap, I'm suggesting $2 million and we take the 250 out of our general funds to make 1.25 as the final. I'd like to hear what people think.
I'm good with that.
You agree with me on that one?
I think we should go for 10 years if it looks like we can afford it.
Well, 300,000. Your battery is running low.
Oh, boy.
All right. Looks like city council never plugs their battery in. Talk to both comments here. Jess, you're okay with that?
I feel like I've talked a lot, so I want
Joe, Harry, what do you think?
Sounds good. Yeah. Think makes sense to borrow less than more.
Excuse me while I plug this in, and then I'm going to go to the actual bond authorization letter. I'm going to rewrite it because it says 2.25, because that's what we're voting on. Oh, man. Is there another outlet over there?
Is there something on the other side of that, or it's empty?
Isn't it the laptop under the screen that's going to work?
Huh? No, it's this laptop, but these two plugs run that laptop. Well, let's hope the battery makes it to the end of the meeting. This is the bond authorization that we're voting on this evening. In the second motion, I will ask you to make a motion that states the bonding for the project is conditional on City Space securing necessary construction funds. That's a second motion. It's not in this motion. This is from bond counsel. Yes.
Could it be the availability of funds?
Not construction funds.
Well, if you make the.
I've had trouble with the language, so I'll take suggestions on it.
Yeah, I'm curious, if you make the language binding on other funds, does that mean it's not available?
Here's the point. The intent is.
Contract should maybe say that. I'm curious.
That's true, because there is a grant
It's not in this
agreement.
bond language, and I would be nervous putting some sort of caveat in bond language.
Oh, it's not. It's a
Okay.
separate motion, total separate motion. It's not going in this language. And the mayor had the same concern. The point I'm trying to make is we want it clear to the city council, that the bond will not be purchased until your other funding is in place. And I don't know whether that's construction funding or available funds. Construction funding is what I would think makes sense, because that's the construction. That's what you're using the funds at first.
Shouldn't it just be the match?
We don't want to say match. The mayor brought up a good point, because match says 3.5 million means 3.5 million from you, doesn't it? It could be construed as that. This is all legal. stuff, so. But this is, to me, it's to make sure that the city council is aware that this bond won't be purchased until City Space is ready to construct. Because you have the funds in place. Make sense, Mike?
Well, yeah, that's an administrative thing. I'm not sure. I mean,
But you make
I
a
think
point.
making it clear to the council is very important. But I don't,
Well, that's the only reason it's a separate motion from this.
I mean, the contract with City Space and the city of Easthampton or the CPA committee, that's probably a great place for that.
It's going to be in there, and you bring up a point I should have brought up. There has to be a major grant agreement, and that grant agreement will include City Spaces funds, City of Easthampton funds, CPA funds. So obviously that could be where it is. I'd like this in the minutes.
No, I might.
But it's a separate motion.
The
It's a-
bond motion with the city council.
Yes. So I am going to change this I have a consensus to change this to $2 million.
Sure.
And this to 1.1250. We all seeing that? I changed this here. All right. And I changed this to 2 million. Okay. We're ready for the vote. Any more questions or statements or anything? Okay. I'm just going to read this for the record and someone's going to say so moved. I would like a motion from the Community Preservation Committee to recommend to the full council that the Community Preservation Committee hereby recommends that the city council appropriate $3,250,000 from the Community Preservation Fund to pay costs of rehabilitating and restoring the old town hall in order to make it more functional for its intended use, which is for performing arts and other community purposes as contemplated by Chapter 83 of the Acts of 2018 of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the lease agreement between the city and City Space Incorporated, effective January 1st, 2019, relating to the Old Town Hall, and to pay any costs incidental or related thereto, the Old Town Hall project, and that the appropriation from the Community Preservation Fund be in addition to any state grants and private donations raised by City Space Incorporated to fund the Old Town Hall project, and that this appropriation from Community Preservation Fund for the Old Town Hall project be funded by A, transferring $1,250,000. Oh, great.
From the fund,
From the
and
fund.
B, borrowing 2 million under chapter 44B, section 11 of the general laws.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Yes.
Boy,
Nice cover, Kath.
we have a motion on the floor to ask the council to authorize a bond and to approve $3,250,000 and authorize a bond for $2 million. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, Greg Rowland,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
Dan Rich says aye. Second motion, that the bonding for this project is conditional on City Space securing necessary construction funds.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Hearing none.
I
Greg?
have a question. So I'm concerned about the vague language of any necessary construction funds. I mean, are we being specific enough?
I'll take any suggestions. So we can do a different motion. I needed to make sure that city council knew that this bond was not going to be purchased until City Space had the necessary funds in place to begin construction. Their liquid cash.
Who determines that? I mean,
You're breaking up. Say again, Greg.
who determines that? Like what constitutes the necessary construction funds?
There will be a grant agreement done. I believe the auditor and the treasurer will be involved in that.
We'll also have a bid with an actual construction number associated with it.
True.
And they'll need to have the funds in place.
And the mechanics of all of this are being handled by the city with City Space.
Are we asking them to verify that they have the funds in some way?
Yeah. They will have to verify.
Is that
Does
part of
that
the?
make sense to you, Mike? Has to be you have to verify that you have the funds in place before we can begin construction anyways.
Yeah,
Your side of the funds, the grants.
The board can't award a contract without the funding available to it.
Did you hear that, Craig? The City Space Board can't award funding until they have the funds, award a contract until they have the funds available. All right?
If we said something like the balance of the remaining balance of the construction bid, would that fill in any vacancy? Or is that?
Joe, I think that's good. Yeah.
So amended to securing the remaining balance of construction.
The accepted construction bid.
Good job, Jeff.
Securing, say it again, Joe. I want to write it down. I don't have a computer anymore.
What do you have?
I stopped at securing
The remaining balance of the accepted construction bid. The total construction bid, was there another name?
Or the construction award.
there's big grant agreement involved in all this, so I don't think this is something that I want to be clear that everybody has on the record that we are not awarding a bond. We're not purchasing a bond without funds in place. I don't want to use the word matching funds because but that's kind of where I'm thinking. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, to be honest, we try this with all applicants. I mean,
Actually, you're right.
most of the applications that come before us, CPA is only a portion of what is in place. And so it's standard procedure, quite
And you bring
frankly.
up a good point. Jamie would have done a grant agreement with this very language in it.
Yeah.
But because she's on vacation, we're going to do that at our next meeting, in which we'll finalize the 1.25 million that we have to take out of our regular funds.
Mhm.
And that'll be a separate vote of city council.
Yep.
Okay. So just to repeat, the motion is that bonding for the project is conditional on City Space securing the remaining balance of the construction bid.
I'll make the motion as revised.
Somebody second.
I'll second.
Okay. Do you have any other discussion? Hearing none. Greg?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Jess?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
And Rich says aye.
And can I just say one thing now that we voted in terms of Greg's comment in requesting verification? I don't know if we do that with other applicants. I know that when there's a grant that's award, there's a grant award letter, but again, to be equitable in terms of, I know this is a huge amount of money and this is way more than we typically dole out, but I just want to state that to ask somebody to come and prove and verify when we don't ask that from anybody else. seems
Well,
a
I
little-
think you said it though, because this is a big grant, $3 million. We have to have some kind of a more pro forma grant agreement. It's not, the grant agreement we normally do is CPA grant agreement.
Sure.
The other one is a huge grant agreement between the city space.
Mhm.
And it's a legal document that I think Jamie has had to do for some other projects. I don't remember what, but when they exceeded, maybe there's a figure of $1 million. I don't,
And this is the first project bonding too, right?
Right.
it's the only project.
No, I
we
know.
ever done.
I understand. I just want to,
I believe that
No.
language will be in the grant agreement, which Burns has to sign when we get it, so that's there anyway.
Mhm.
But that won't be, I could probably get that before, it'll be done by the time we do the public hearing. So timeline, this goes before the council next week. The other half of that language, my computer's dead. The other half of that document was what's going before the city council. That gets voted on. Moves to finance committee. And I'll set that right now. So August 3rd, it just goes to committee. August, well, I have 2 dates because we only have 1 meeting. August 10th or August 24th? What's better for you guys? Burns and Mike, you have to be there. Finance committee.
Either one.
Either one? All right, I'm gonna say the 24th for now. Might change my mind, but if either one's okay, all right? I gotta find out from other committee members. But we will also set a public hearing for the full council for September 7th. Okay? Anything else for the meeting this evening? Okay. A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. I just want to thank Greg Rowland for attending this evening. He's on vacation. What a trooper. And he was
Thank you, Greg.
invaluable to me at the bond meeting. So thank you, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
All right. So all in favor of adjourning, Greg Rowland,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
Joe,
Yes.
Larry,
Aye.
Dan says aye. I'm going to stop recording now.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.